Every person has a story, but not everyone has a place to tell it. I'm Frank Swoboda. I've interviewed amazing people all over the planet. I want you to meet them. This week, the most interesting person you've never heard of is...
My name is Julia Sweeney, and I'm the most interesting person you've never heard of because after today, I'm moving into a cave for 10 years.
So I just watched your show. Which the title alone, I was driving by the marquee and I'm just like,
also my husband.
Frickin' really? Yeah.
He's good.
He is good, dude.
He could have totally
Older
made it as a
and
comedy
whiter?
writer.
Oh my God.
Actually, because I
absolutely.
was saying to him, what should my show be called? I want it to be like something that acknowledges that I'm older, but also like I'm crustier. I'm, and he was like older and wise-assier. And I go, oh, that's funny, except that I'm not a wise-ass. That's not
You're
my
not really.
way at all. So it's not really right. And he goes, oh, I thought of something, but I'm afraid to say it.
Then you know it's going to be good.
I know. I go, what? He goes, older and wider. I started laughing so hard. I was like, that's it. He goes, I'm so happy you laughed at that. He goes, I knew that was one I could have gotten in big trouble.
Very dangerous. Very risky.
Very dangerous idea.
Very risky of him.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about the Fox because it was at the Fox.
Yeah.
Which is just one of the coolest things we've done in a city.
It is.
I mean, $39 million or something we dropped 10 years ago. And it is just being there again.
To me, I wanted the show to be kind of a tribute to the Fox and how much the Fox has meant to so many of our lives.
Sure.
Introducing us to the arts and movies and theater and everything. And
your first job.
And my first job.
That is so
That's
cool.
a little of a fake. My actual, truly first job was at A&W, but that was like a week
before.
But
you
and
worked
I worked
there.
both of them.
You
yeah.
worked there, though. Wow,
Yeah.
That's incredible. I love the story about you. I don't want to give away your show. But your mom in labor, dropping you off at the Fox to watch a double feature while they're giving birth?
Not even a double feature. It was just Yellow Submarine. During one movie, she gave birth. And when I said to her later, Mom...
You should have told Paul that story.
I go, I didn't realize that you were in labor. And she goes, and then you gave birth like in 2 hours. Like by the time Dad came to pick us up, you already had the baby. And she goes, oh yeah, those later babies came out fast. It's like...
That's what my mom told me.
Okay.
Wow.
She goes, oh, your body knows what to do.
That's right.
Just stick that baby out.
And I remember meeting you, the first time I met you was at the Addy Awards here. Remember
that's
that?
right.
You
That
came
was
to
such
host
a great
that.
night.
And you gave the best compliment to my brother and I. You said, I didn't realize there's people that are here with talent.
I did. That's a terrible thing to say.
No, it isn't.
No,
it's absolutely true.
No, that was
I was
the
like,
night.
wonder if I
that
could make it
night,
there,
I thought, I could live in Spokane. Because I left really at 17 to go to college, and I came back one summer, and otherwise I was gone. But of course, I love Spokane so much, but I thought, but I'm around all these creative people. I could never not be around the creative community.
Right.
But then when I did that, I was like, oh yeah, there is a creative community in Spokane.
There is.
I would have, because I had just knew my old friends and my old people who weren't in that area.
Right.
But that night, I was like, I could totally live in Spokane.
Yeah.
I'd find my
You'd find your people.
Yeah.
Well, and I have this theory that I have shared on one of the other podcasts with somebody. It was Eckhart Proy, the conductor of the symphony, who was born in East Germany and was conductor here for 15 years. Amazing guy. And so I told him, I go, I think Jess Walter and I have talked about this, that there's something in the water here about people that are, you, Jess Walter, Sherman Alexie, Tim Egan, right?
Tim Egan, oh God, so great.
National Book Award winners.
Yeah, no, he's so
but
wonderful.
There's some amazing, not all sort of in the same era of age and sort of,
But sort of.
But I my theory is that, having traveled around a lot, because I do a lot of work all over the world, is that there's a sensibility about Spokane where we understand what would play in Peoria, Illinois.
Yeah.
But we're not intimidated by the big city going there if you lived in Iowa.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're comfortable in Seattle and Portland and LA, and it's not a big scary thing.
I think
and we're
that's
sort
true.
of we're ourselves there.
Yeah.
Do you find that?
Yeah, I think that's a good theory. I thought you were going to say there's all these Catholics and they had so many children that a few of them were going to turn out to do something.
That's the other theory. No, that's your theory.
I was saying to
which
my
I think
husband,
is true too.
Because we just have our one daughter, but we go, I go, when I look at my family with the 5 kids, like I think of my parents and their interests. You needed about 5 kids to get 1 or 2 to share your interests.
Oh.
Like my dad was really into sports. None of us were into it. But then my youngest brother, Jim, was. So on the 5th kid, he got someone who would watch football games with him. Right? So you got to have a lot of kids till you find some.
That's true, because I only have 2. So, they're doing their best, but it's a lot of pressure on them. It's not fair. That's not fair.
I mean, it would be kind of great. I mean, now I'm not interested in raising children, but it would be great to have a whole bunch of kids and just say, oh, this one turned out to like this and this one turned out to like that. Yeah. I think that would be interesting.
It is cool. They're very different. I mean, they like different things, and it's cool to see the parts of them that are different, but together they're kind of scaring me. They're really powerful, which is also good. So how did you get to how did somebody from Spokane get to SNL? That's it. I mean, that's
really
a big question. It is the Groundlings in LA.
Yeah, because I was an accountant in LA. I went to LA to become an accountant. I achieved my dream.
Wow.
Yes.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding. That's how I went to LA.
Weird.
I wanted to be an accountant, and I love movies, and I wouldn't even let myself think of being an actress.
Right.
Or a comedian.
Huh.
And I thought, well, I could be an accountant for the movies.
That's a good idea.
And I did, and I worked at Columbia Pictures and Sony as a film accountant.
You did?
Yeah, for like 6 years. And then then they actually offered to send me to get an MBA or a law degree, because then you could move up in the company.
All that creative accounting on those movie projects.
It is creative, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I tried to produce a couple.
Well, I know they just bury things. It's all buried in interest, I just want to say.
Right, okay,
and
good.
that's where the bodies are.
MGM
And I realized I didn't like it enough to get an advanced degree, and I just didn't like it. It was like I was good at it, but I didn't like it.
Yeah.
So I saw an ad. I read a review of the Groundlings Theater, and it said they taught classes for non-professionals. And I swear to God, if that word were not in the review of the classes, I probably would never have become an actor, because it was only because they said non-professionals can take classes. Like, you don't have to be an actor to take the classes. That I would even have thought of taking a class. And then once I took the class, which I flunked the full first level, but once I repeated it, I knew I was going to be good at it.
Huh.
Yeah, but it took a long time, so I didn't really start trying to act until I was like 27.
So how did you find the Groundlings?
I just read a review in the paper. I didn't even know about them.
Wow.
And then I went and started taking classes and never left. And after 2 years, I quit my job as an accountant and just did the Groundlings.
What did your parents think? They just were you
terrible,
nuts?
awful.
What are you doing?
Why? Yeah, my mom would cry on the phone and say, "What about health insurance?" Which is not a bad question.
Well, what percentage do you think of this is luck?
That's
the other.
big.
It goes back to that whole. It's in the water
really
here.
It's really big. I mean,
is it?
Yeah, I think you have to because the Groundlings is a great.
Mark Stylen. He's here.
Yeah.
Look at all these people.
I saw him in L.A. Yeah, he's
Mark.
working. He's still working a lot.
Of course he is. He produced the Tag movie and rewrote that. And I mean, he's another one.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot.
Yeah.
Is it all? Yeah. I don't know how much luck it is.
I always think there's so many ways to make a living in show business that if you really give yourself 5 years of concentration, you'll probably figure out some way to make a living. I mean, maybe not a great living, but some kind of living.
Right.
Then luck has a lot to do with it. I mean, in fact, when I see the people on SNL now, they're so talented, I think I would never get on now. Oh. I think their standards were lower.
You think?
Well, I don't know.
Who's your favorite current cast member? Who just?
Well, Adie Bryant, of course.
I know. I love her.
I
know. I can see it.
Anyway, there's like a lot of them.
She'd be your little sister.
Yeah. Well, I played her mother in a very short-lived series that was fun.
Oh, that's right.
Shrill.
Right.
But I just love her.
Oh, I love her too. She can play so many different ages.
Yeah.
I love when she plays the super old ladies.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So one of our teammates and guys who works with me, Dean Saranac, is our editor.
Yeah.
Phenomenal editor. He is in New York right now. His fiance won tickets to Saturday Night Live. And he's in New York to go to the show tomorrow, Saturday night.
On Saturday.
Wow. So can you hook him up? Like, does he have any, anybody, any parties, any advice?
It's hard for me to get tickets.
Any advice? Yeah.
It is.
Okay, that's what I thought.
No, but it's fun to go. It's fun to see it.
He's so excited.
Yeah, I'm sure. Who's hosting? Do you know?
He said a comedian. I didn't know the name of.
This is how old I am.
But
it's
a comedian he loves. I'm like,
I don't know a lot of the people that they announce that are hosting.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm out of it now. But that's also nice. I don't have to know.
Do you have to deal with Lauren much?
Yeah.
Because I think he's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been kind of.
Yeah.
I know the Dr. Evil stories and everything, but I think he's
a mixed bag. But I would say 80. I mean, it's been so long now. It's actually remarkable what he's done. Yeah, it's been his life's work, and he's changed the culture because of his life's work.
Right. Do you remember the day you got picked? Or how's it work?
No, because it's such a mind fuck. Like there isn't a day. I mean. They kept coming to the show, incrementally levels of slightly more people who come to the Groundlings show. They narrowed it down.
Did you know they were there?
Yeah, of course. But there were so it wasn't like tonight's the night. It was like the fourth level down from Lauren's assistant is there. You know, like
it doesn't mean anything.
It's like you have to just always be good. And then it kind of got narrowed down to me and Lisa Kudrow. Although Kathy Griffin says now that it was her, Lisa Kudrow and me. I only thought of it was me and Lisa Kudrow. And then we had a night, and Lauren came.
Wow.
But still, then a month went by afterwards where there was no contact.
So were you doing sketches? Were you doing stand-up?
Yes, I was doing sketches. The Groundlings is sketches and improv.
Sketch improv.
There's no stand-up.
Okay.
And so I did sketches, and it went really well. And then they talked to my agent, and then they said, we'll bring you out for another audition. And I had to go in front of the cast in a little room and do all my sketches just to the cast. It was awful. But they were actually really nice.
What'd you do? Did you do anything to remember, or just block it
I had like 4 or 5 characters, including Pat, that I did. And they laughed, and they seemed nice, and then they hired me. But it was... So there wasn't this moment... There was kind of like, could you move to New York and maybe you'll be on the show, but maybe you won't. And then you're on the show, and then maybe you're going to be this cast member, but maybe that. And so that by the time, it really wasn't until I did my first show and I really killed in this one sketch that I had written that I knew I was on the show.
What was the sketch?
It was something I'd done at the Groundlings. I did it with Jimmy Smits, and it was based on my mother. And it was a girl who doesn't know how to tell the end of a story, so she's just having cliffhangers all the time. I do a little bit of it in my show when my mom's telling me about the Filipino nurse, and she just refuses to cut to the chase. She sets up this big dramatic thing, and then she just stops. And then I'm like, and then what happened? And then so it was like somebody who keeps doing that over and over again on a date, and then the guy's going crazy because I'm not telling the story right.
Oh my God, that's pretty. That must have been.
And it did really well, and then Lauren said that was great, and I thought, okay, I guess I'm in the cast now.
Wow.
But there wasn't like a moment when you got it. I mean, people today might get that, but I didn't get that.
Did you you want to weigh in on the Chris Rock thing? And the
Will Smith is so awful. Like
what was that?
Well,
that was crazy.
First of all, Chris didn't know about her alopecia.
Chris?
Yeah. I mean, I worked with him, and sometimes I see him.
Right, yeah.
But it's like, I thought it was so frightening because the arrogance of him getting up and slapping him like that during the awards, which made me think that he was drunk or high, like I believe. Also, the way he slapped him, it was not somebody who's never slapped someone before. Like, if I was going to punch somebody, I'd probably...
He played Muhammad Ali.
Well, yes, okay.
He's had a little training.
What I'm saying is I could be wrong, but watching that's a guy who slaps people. That's not the first time he did that. And 2, what I thought was interesting is that he was laughing at the joke, and then he looked at Jada. She looked hurt, and maybe hurt at him for laughing at the joke. He felt shame, and he turned it on Chris Rock. Like he had to redeem himself to his wife by hitting him. And I thought, to me, that was just so obvious what had just happened.
Right.
Is that, like, it's almost like your spouse is looking at you laughing at a joke at their expense, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to go hit somebody.
No, I'm not. I'm going to go be Prince Valiant.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when he won, and that apology that was just so self-centered and just so egomaniacal about himself.
Right.
not even acknowledging what had just happened, nor that they had asked him, now we know, to leave the Oscars, and he didn't.
Right.
And then, like, I kept thinking, I can see you're at the Oscars, you're so stunned, maybe you're high, you know, like,
it's just a real
but
space.
to go afterwards, after you win and party all night, I won Best Actor, without ever stopping, like, what did I just do? What just happened? And it seemed as though it wasn't until the world reacted to him that he understood that it was completely inappropriate.
I buy that.
Like, he had to be told.
Right.
Like, literally every step of the way, he has not shown an honorable response.
Right. I thought Chris Rock took that punch and kept rolling and stayed on.
Right.
And then, I don't know if you saw the cutaways that, like, Japanese TV or something got the ref. They stopped it. And the screaming and yelling back and forth.
Yeah,
that kind of got cut out of the... Yeah, I mean, there was more to the story there. And I thought Chris kept his composure, honestly.
And I felt bad because there was just so many bad things about it. There's just so many...
There's so many bad things.
It's just too bad. Anyway.
I know, and it's sticky, man. It's staying around. People are still talking about
it.
Oh,
yeah, they will. When he dies, that will be in the
obituary. It's part of the legacy.
I mean...
Yeah.
That slap will be following him for the rest of his life and his whole family, and everything's changed because of it.
Yeah.
And it's just because he couldn't keep himself together for one awkward moment of his wife looking at him upset.
Right, just deal. Yeah.
Just, you know, like, he could have said something during his speech, like, in spite of this, I wasn't so happy. I know I laughed, but I realized when I looked at my wife, it's not funny to her because she suffers from a condition. There's so many things he could have done.
He could have been more authentic about it.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
And I feel like it was just reveals that celebrities and many other people who aren't even celebrities, but they're so entitled and they don't even stop and think about it. And I still think he still isn't thinking about it, except for how it's affecting how the public views
brand.
him.
Yeah.
So now it's almost like now any real apology is impossible because it's only reacting to your fame being damaged.
Right. It won't look sincere.
No, there was a window where you could have been authentic.
That's right.
And that window's over.
It's gone. Yeah, that's true. So back to the Pat thing.
Yes.
One of the parts I loved in your show is how you and your daughter have the conversation about can you even do Pat anymore?
I feel like if I knew what I knew now, I would be careful to make Pat certain ways that it wouldn't come off as offensive to people who are non-binary. But at the time, I wasn't, I didn't really, I knew there were people who didn't play up their gender or non-binary wasn't a thing.
There was no non-binary.
There was no non-binary.
There wasn't.
What I was responding to were famous musicians who were playing with androgyny in a very exotic way, like Madonna or like, sorry.
That's okay. You're a very important person.
No, I'm not. It's all scam likelies. It's because I give political donations, which basically means, and you have to put your phone number on it, and it means that now you're going to get 50 calls a day for the rest of your friggin' life.
Right. Why are they doing that?
I know. I don't understand why Act Blue doesn't have a thing where you can say, "Don't ever call me."
Right. Yeah, I'll pay you more if you don't ever call me.
Oh my God, I would totally pay more to never contact me again. Okay, but anyway. That's what mostly matters.
That's a great way to raise more dollars. Anyway.
Yeah.
It is. Smart.
Actually, like, I was going to say the World Wildlife Fund. That's not it. Maybe it was the Sierra Club. Or what other organization. You paid like $50 a year. And then they had this thing saying, pay $1,000 and you're a member for life and we'll never contact you again. It was like, done.
Click.
God. So what I was responding to is people like Prince, Madonna, David Bowie, who were playing with androgyny in a very sexual way.
Annie Lennox.
But the most common form of androgyny is people who aren't even trying to be androgynous. They're just accidentally androgynous because it's like the mother driving the minivan of 8 kids who has no time to comb her hair and is frumpy. And you realize you can't really even tell if it's a man or woman. So my idea really had nothing to do with non-binary people.
Of course it didn't. It was the mom driving the minivan, which is funny.
So that was my insight. And then once I did it and we were making the song about androgyny, and then people like Prince and Katie Lang were loving it, that I thought, okay,
My wife
great.
is a huge fan of that sketch.
Okay.
She can sing all the lyrics anyway.
And then because I did that character, it made me pay more attention to how women and men present themselves in ways that aren't biological, just social,
right,
to distinguish themselves.
Right.
And I may have been this way anyway, but I really like androgyny in that I shouldn't say I don't like. People should do whatever they want with how they look, but I like people who aren't trying so hard to be one gender or the other. Like, they're not wearing a push-up bra and big lips and huge hair.
They're not the housewives or whatever.
Right.
Town.
So, like, to me, people who present themselves closer to the middle, I just like them more because there's something very right-wingy conservative about having to present as masculine man or overly feminine woman.
Right. Until COVID, man, one wears sweats all the time.
I know, it's true.
Now it's gone way too far.
But I like
it's
older
a dinner
people.
party and you're wearing sweats?
Right.
What's that?
I know.
Does she know?
Anyway, so then when the non-binary identified themselves as an oppressed group, of course, I wasn't even thinking of Pat as that.
Right, no.
Like, in fact, in my mind, Pat's heterosexual and would be horrified to learn that Pat was androgynous.
Did you have the moment in the last 10 years or so when this whole non-binary world started where you went, oh shit?
Yes, because people were talking about it. There was a few articles where they said, well, the derogatory character Pat that just made fun of androgynous people. And that broke my heart because I can see how I was oblivious to a fault about the androgynous non-binary community. The last thing I was trying to do was say that community is like Pat. First of all, they aren't like Pat.
They're not like Pat.
Okay.
No, they're not like the image of Pat that you have.
But then it went further because I realized, my husband actually said this and I thought, this is so right. He goes, it's really that Pat is unattractive. If Pat would just attractive androgynous,
right,
it would have been fine.
Right.
It's that you were showing androgyny as an unattractive version. I go, but that was my original idea. Like, androgyny isn't always great, like David Bowie. Sometimes it's just some frumpy person who you just actually can't tell if it's a man or a woman. And
your daughter goes, I don't know.
I know. So then my daughter, who's from a whole different generation, is like, you can't make fun of people for that. And it's like, no, I wasn't making fun of people. In fact, in my mind, Pat's heterosexual, not even trying to be androgynous.
Right.
To me, that's what's funny, is that Pat is so unintentionally androgynous.
No idea aware of this.
It's like I said in the show, I actually did want to do a sketch where we find out that Pat's homophobic. I thought that would be a funny, hilarious layer to put on Pat, but I already understood that
sounds even worse.
It's so the whole Pat thing is too. It was too complicated for an easy joke.
God. It's still cool that you created this character, and it's I don't know.
I don't know.
You think people understand? I mean, if they know anything about you, of course they understand that. I mean, it's not even close.
I think I'm lucky that Pat could have been, and maybe still will be, but so far hasn't been totally, like, I haven't been canceled because of Pat.
Right.
Like, nobody's made a big enough stink about it, and I've done enough interviews where I tried to honestly explain why I did it and where I fell short, my intention was this.
Yeah, I think most people absolutely know, non-binary did not exist in whatever
But now,
years
though,
those were
sometimes
going
I
on.
meet people who really thought, oh my God, my phone. Scam likely. Let's just turn off this.
Turn off that.
We have the technology to
can
stop
do this.
it.
You're just like us.
I can't remember what I was saying. Oh, it doesn't matter.
Oh.
People who like Pat too much, though, also scare me because they're usually conservatives. You know what? I love that character where you don't know if it's a man or a woman. Like, that's
now
awful. And it's
they're
like,
spinning it.
no, that isn't awful. Anyway, I just feel like I can't win on either side. If with the conservatives, they like it too much,
right,
or they're upset because I was after I became popular, I got booked in things like opening of a mall in the Midwest or something as Pat, and some of the conservative towns wouldn't have me because they thought I was representing androgyny in a way that they were afraid of.
Uncomfortable with.
Yes, uncomfortable with. So
promoting. We don't want to promote that.
Conservatives either don't like it because they're just uncomfortable with androgyny in general,
right,
or they like it too much, like they're too interested in if people are men or women. And then on the liberal side, I just can't win for trying. Like I feel like I mean, I guess I keep trying to explain, Pat, and let me just say, once you're explaining the joke too much, it's
not a joke anymore.
Like, I just think, just be quiet and live your life.
You shared a lot about your mom.
Yeah.
And Alzheimer's, and I just found that really powerful.
She doesn't, I don't know if she has Alzheimer's. Dementia.
Memory loss.
Yeah.
What do we call that? I mean, that's part
I don't
of the
know, because she is in and out. You know, like, some days she's...
Pretty lucid, huh?
Pretty lucid. She's not ever totally lucid, I would say now.
But it's a progression and a hard thing to deal with.
You know, it's a hard thing to deal with, and it's a terrible thing for someone to go through, I would say.
And I found it real. How you approached that in your show was really cool. And I think so many people don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
And especially those going through it.
Yeah.
And it just has to weigh on you.
Well, we've learned, like, the families learn things like don't ask direct questions that have an exact answer. You can't, not even say, like, what did you have for lunch? Like, because you're trying to think of things to talk about, right, with somebody who's really not doing much.
Right.
So you're saying, what did you have for lunch? But even that is a stressful conversation because they can't remember what they had for lunch.
Right.
So I've learned to say things like,
that's why she might remember my mom more likely than what she had for lunch.
Oh, yeah. No, well, first of all, lyrics to songs. It's unbelievable.
Play the 40s.
You just go, mares eat oats. She's like, mares eat oats and does eat oats and little lambs eat ivy. She's got all the lyrics. All the lyrics are there on a moment's notice. Wow. So we do a family Zoom every Saturday, and we mostly sing songs.
Oh, how cool is that?
So that's good. But if you say, what did you have for lunch? She goes, and then sometimes she doesn't know she's in California or she's here.
Yeah, right. I thought I was so sweet and sad when she talked about your dad.
I know, like he's in
remembering that he's there.
I know. And then to me, the killer is when she said he's in the bus waiting to take me with Bill and Mike, my brothers who've died, in the bus too.
I thought about that. I wonder if that is if she's sort of foreshadowing that, or it's an
well, no,
maybe they're there
because now it's really interesting because my brother Mike, who died in 1995, was the first of my siblings to die. Bill didn't die till 2012, and then my dad died in 2004. So like more or less every 10 years somebody died, and now she's talking about her mom who died in 1982. A long time ago. It feels like she's going back farther. She's regressing farther and farther.
Right.
Like now she wants to be with her mom.
Right. Well,
and I guess I just hope I don't know what we're going to do in our society about this dementia problem because there is no good answer to you can't. She's not happy living this way. She has a lot of anxiety. It's got
to be scary.
It's not like people go, oh, dementia, you just don't know anything. No, it's a lot of anxiety. Like, it's like, where are people I love? Where am I going? Like, I don't know where I am. It's got to
be scary.
No, it's terrifying. And yeah, it's just horrible. It's horrible to see her go through it. And I want it to stop, and she could live for many years in this condition, and there's nothing to be done about it.
Right, except just be there.
You can sedate people. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, and then, part of your show is weaving in this, idea that not only are you dealing with this with a very devout Catholic. Yeah. Right? My parents were too. I mean, Mass every day kind of.
Yeah, people. My dad, daily communicant.
My dad too. Yeah. And my mom. And then you're an atheist. And I always thought, so we were talking right maybe before we rolled on this, but at the beginning about, I'm a brand guy. And so I'm constantly working on telling brand stories, and it always pisses me off when people get it wrong. global warming is not
Right.
what it is.
It needs to be
climate
climate
change.
change.
Is better. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's not defund the police. That's the worst brand some progressive
worst.
put on its own idea that is hurting itself.
Oh my God. No, it's the worst.
Worst brand name ever.
The worst.
So when I think of atheism,
No, it needs a
it
new
made
brand.
me think. I think that's not knowing you. I don't know enough about you yet. I mean, we sort of know each other, but I know everything that I've heard. I don't think atheism means not spiritual.
Well, people think it does.
But I think it's probably yes. That's what I mean.
Even though I say I'm not spiritual.
I bet you it's.
I say I'm religious, but not spiritual.
Oh my God!
But
Okay,
I'm all
we
over.
better. But does it have a bad brand? And if so,
Yes.
what is it?
Well,
and
they
what
tried
do you
to
think
change
it
it.
is?
There was this group that tried to change it to brights, which is terrible because it's
What?
like saying everyone else is dims. And so they were trying to say they did a whole campaign for a year. They had a couple $1 million. They're trying to rebrand atheism as brights, which I wanted to say at the beginning. This is a terrible name.
Who picked that? Yeah,
They
dumb.
picked it. They did some market research and picked brights.
So what is atheism as you know it, or what is it, so that we get it right?
Well, the problem with
All I
the
know
word
is
atheism,
they don't believe in God.
right? Well, that's accurate.
Right, but
But
I mean, also it tends to connote that you don't believe in anything.
well, I think most people think that it's tied to communism because there was a huge
Yes.
campaign to hate atheist communists.
Yes.
So everyone's
Right.
like,
Oh, that's right.
So that connection is still there. It means that I don't live my life under the assumption that there is a God watching me. Now,
Okay.
for some people, that's terrifying to think that I guess they think people are moral because they're going to get in trouble later and you have to have somebody
you're
watching you. I mean, I would say people who understand that to pretend you think somebody's watching you so you can take advantage of people is the best
Wait.
position and what most of those people are doing.
Right. Yeah.
So to be honest enough to say that you don't live your life under the assumption that there is a God
Right.
is, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's how I live my life. I mean, I guess for me, I wouldn't have talked about it except that I wouldn't call myself a devout Catholic, but I was really in love with the Catholic Church. I was in love with the rituals and the romantic
Me too.
way of viewing
And
it.
the mystery of it. My wife, who is not Catholic, whenever we go to mass with my family or whatever, she's like, I just love there's serenity and peace and space
Yeah.
and quiet.
No, the
which we do
ritual
not-
of the
sur-
mass
we
is
do
so
not have.
beautiful.
It is.
Yes.
I'm with you.
No, and I was really in love with that.
And I
And
miss
in
it.
fact, I loved it so much that I looked into it. And
There was your
no, because I
downfall.
took a Bible study class at St. Monica's in Santa Monica. And that was kind of the beginning of like, okay, when you read the Bible, just sit and read it. Even guided every week, you're reading 50 pages or something. It's obviously a historical document of great influence that affected a lot of people, but is totally not the
Accurate.
inerrant word of God.
Right.
And in fact, even the Ten Commandments are kind of horrible. I mean, like,
Don't do this and don't do
First
that.
of all, when it says do not kill, it only means inside your tribe. I mean, God's telling people to kill other people right and left in the Old Testament. I mean, like, go kill all of them, he's saying. I mean, like, so that they don't even really make sense. And they're actually not even 10. They're cobbled together from two different sets of, if you read the Bible, there's not just one 10 commandments. There's 120 commandments, and then there's another that says it's 10, but it's 13. Like, there's
some inconsistencies, let's just
but
say.
I found it incredibly fascinating. I'm really fascinated by the Bible. I'm still taking Bible classes to this day. I started another one
That's
in
why
May.
you're still religious. But,
And well,
right?
I think religion's an interesting phenomenon.
me
But
too.
once I realized that I didn't think a God was watching. Well, first of all, I never needed a God to be moral. I needed a God to be my friend and be upset about boys who didn't like me back the way I felt.
Right.
That was the God I needed.
Your personal Jesus.
So my God was kind of like a friendly uncle who was just astonished that I wasn't more successful.
Right.
And so,
And always a guy.
yeah, and a guy So I wasn't thinking, don't do that because God might punish me. I never had that.
Yeah.
God was my friend. I had a friendly God.
Yeah, I didn't either. I think we were not really taught that.
So when I stopped believing in God, it wasn't like I became amoral because I wasn't moral because there was a God.
That's right.
What happened to me is I lost my friend, my imaginary friend is who I lost. And I realized that I had to be my own imaginary friend.
You still, though, think about, like, I think of myself as a pretty spiritual person. Like, I study it. I'm really fascinated by it. I was a religious studies minor, so I had the same kind of interest that you had in this whole thing. And I found myself, reading Eckhart Tolle a lot more. And
right.
some of that just sort of like, oh, wow, you do create kind of your path and how you think about what you do matters,
Yeah.
And how you live your life matters.
Oh, it makes a huge difference.
And I think that's where that brand is killing that. Because it thinks that you don't care. There's an I don't care in that word. Atheist.
Well, but I would volley back on that because I feel like people who say that may be true for people becoming atheists, but people who go, I don't know, maybe there is something, but I think there's a lot of answers and there's a lot of I hate them more than just people who are traditionally religious. Because when you accept that we are just an animal, a very unique, incredible animal that evolved on this planet, just like every other species evolved, but we have this capacity we have this prefrontal cortex, we have the ability to rationally make these choices and decisions, and that we just evolved on this planet, and we're hanging out there in the universe, and when we die just like any other animal. That is a profoundly different way of looking at the world than somebody who just maybe there's something, maybe there's not. It's like, no, there isn't anything.
So that you think that's it?
What do you mean in terms of
when you die? There's no more consciousness of
I don't
you
see.
That continues on.
Consciousness evolved. First of all, there's many other animals who have various forms of consciousness, sometimes superior to ours, sometimes similar.
Yeah, really.
None of them enough to completely conquer the earth and then asphyxiate it, as we're doing.
Yeah, no kidding.
But still, octopus and everything have very different levels of consciousness. There's no reason to think that our consciousness has something special over other animals. And obviously, it's an adaptation for survival.
Right.
And we're going to die like any other animal. And I don't think life becomes precious until you realize that.
You're right.
I think that's the profound insight. And that religion robs people of that basic truth that adds enormous meaning, poignancy, and maybe spirituality to your life to know that you're just here for this time.
So in that way, life is even more precious.
Yes, to me, the experience made life more meaningful, more precious, more sacred in a way. I
want to wake up every day and make the most of it.
Yeah, and
Carpe
I'm not
diem.
Right.
In a way that you
and sadder and happier. It's to me, it just took I would say it was the God-colored glasses. You took them off and you see the world in all its glory and pain,
right,
and unfairness and luck, and everything,
right.
You don't. To me, you don't get there till you're an atheist. To be wishy-washy on that leaves you without being able to confront the reality of it.
You're not really alive.
Yeah. So, people disagree with me, and that's fine. Everybody gets to believe what they want. I don't care about that.
That doesn't sound crazy to me.
But for me, it was a profound experience, and that's why I wanted to talk about it.
That is lost in the brand of atheist.
Yeah. Well, besides the fact that there's a big cohort of atheists who are awful people.
Yes.
I'm not just talking about Pol Pot and Stalin. I'm talking about, in America, right-wing libertarians who are patriarchal assholes.
Right.
But they're also atheists and...
in a dangerous way.
In a very frightening way.
Yeah.
Yeah. People who are using things like Catholicism, I would say Steve Bannon, I don't believe he's a true believer. You can't guess at somebody's spirituality, but he's using Catholicism to further his agenda of patriarchy and control over others. And so anyway, blah, blah, blah.
No, I'm so glad you shared that with me because what's beautiful in the end of your show is just the fact that your mom can't get her brain around that at all, and that you were really deliberate in saying they died. Dad died until you said Dad's in heaven, and then she was okay, and she wouldn't drive you as crazy as she was
exactly.
before. There's something soothing about that I totally get.
Yeah, and also I like to think of I began to like hearing what her version of what my dad and my brothers were up to.
So you were open to that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. Yeah, what's fun to have a fantasy about that? Like, what would they be doing?
If you died and you woke up somewhere else and you kept going?
Would I be pissed?
Yeah.
No, I'd be like, wow, it's so wrong.
Oh, so wrong. Who cares? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good.
I could be wrong.
Right. Oh, yeah. And I could be wrong. I mean,
I could totally be wrong. And also, that's another thing is I feel like religious people often just feel like they can't change their mind. I can change my mind. I mean, I feel pretty settled on the idea of God. I don't need to go over it and over it. No. But yeah, I get things wrong. So does everybody. You have to keep revising. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
all right.
We'll come back and talk to me sometime.
I will.
Again.
Thank you.
And if you ever do your Catholic
podcast. Catholicism.
I would love to talk to you about that some more.
Okay.
I think about it a lot. All right. MIP Podcast was filmed at the studio of Corner Booth Media. Please sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can also listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere podcasts can be found. Be good to yourself and stay classy.